What's up everybody, GenExDividendInvestor here. In this episode, I'll highlight various YouTubers who discuss dividend stocks and inspired me to start my channel. I'll also share some similarities and differences between their investing strategies and mine, and or how they influence me. Then to wrap things up, I'll share some surprising new dividend data that just came out, along with a few pictures and videos from my recent vacation. And to start off, I'll share that the reason I made this video is because that's what a bunch of my upper tier Patreons voted for in a private channel that they have access to on my Dividend Discord. While I'm on the topic of why I make certain videos, I should also mention that my longtime subscribers know that I started investing over 3 decades ago, and that I started my YouTube channel after going through some nasty health issues that made me aware of my own mortality and the possibility that I might not have the chance in the future to teach my kids how I like to invest. They liked watching YouTube videos, which was something I rarely did myself, so I decided to make some videos about my dividend investing strategies for them to watch once they were old enough to care. I originally was going to make them private, but then my wife suggested I release them publicly. I'd never really been much of a YouTube watcher since I was always busy with work and real life, and the only times I'd go on it were when someone sent me a sports clip, an SNL skit, or maybe a gaming video. In fact, I watched YouTube so rarely that I had no idea what my brother-in-law was talking about when he said he was annoyed that every video kept saying like, subscribe, and blah blah blah. At that point, I'd never subscribed to any channels, never liked a video, never left a comment or anything. I didn't even watch enough to realize that so many creators had that line. But my wife encouraged me to consider making my videos public, so I figured the first step was to do a little research and see what the dealio was about. So I searched for dividend investors on YouTube, and the first result I found was a creator who doesn't post anymore, named Dr. Dividend. This guy first started posting videos back in 2016, so a pretty old channel overall. He has about 35,000 subscribers now, but he stopped posting new content around 2 years ago. His first dividend video talked about his holdings, which included Abbott, Pfizer, Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF, and a few others. Over time, he made more dividend videos, and at one point he even had something like 30% of his portfolio in Ford. I wasn't a fan of all the tickers he owned, but I liked that he shared his portfolio and didn't show his face. That really stood out to me, because one of my big concerns was showing who I was, since I wasn't sure how that might affect me in real life. I also felt it was important to show my actual portfolio at E-Trade, which is where it was before I moved to Fidelity, because that added some legitimacy and showed I just wasn't making things up. But at the same time, I was worried about putting my real financial information out there on the internet, especially since I was raised to never talk about money. Heck, even to this day, my dad has never really shared much about his finances with us. I also thought it would be fun to talk about money issues and share some of the observations I've made about my friends and relatives in a way I could never do if people knew who I was. So my point is that showing my face publicly wasn't something I wanted to do, but seeing this Dr. Dividend guy running a channel without ever showing himself really influenced me. It made me feel like maybe I could do this as well. Another way Dr. Dividend influenced me was through his thumbnail designs, which are what you see when you're deciding which video to click on. One of the first videos of his that popped up for me was called How to Sell Stocks. I really like the simplicity of it, with text on one side of the image and a relevant picture on the other. Of course, tons of YouTubers use that basic layout of an image with text, so it's not exactly unique, but it worked. And I soon realized how common that style was, which I'll explain in a moment. Anyway, I liked how he used a picture of his Robinhood portfolio on his iPhone on the left, and how the edge of the phone created a natural dividing line with the text on the right side. I also noticed that he changed up his thumbnail design with each new video, and I remember thinking I'd rather keep a consistent look and feel for my videos, since that might eventually help people recognize my content. I figured that if I started a channel, I'd come up with some kind of brand to include in my video thumbnails, just to help set them apart, kind of like how Nike brands all their shoes. I should also mention that not only was I not a YouTube watcher, but I also had never really created or edited videos or photos before. In fact, the only media editing tool I'd ever used was Microsoft Paint, the one that came with Windows. And even with that, I'd never done anything fancy like using transparencies or layering images, so I was a complete noob. I'd also never recorded any audio, although I did have a microphone because I sometimes played multiplayer online games where I would chat with guildmates, like in World of Warcraft. And since I was such a noob on YouTube, I started researching how to start a channel and how to grow one. That's when I came across helpful videos from creators like Sunny Lenarduzzi, Nick Nimmin, and Think Media. They all taught different strategies for starting and growing a channel, and they also share tips on making thumbnails, recommending tools like Snappa and Canva, and easy options for beginners. I tried Snappa and immediately liked it because it was easy and intuitive to use. You just log in and right away there's an option to create a graphic like this. Then you can see all these templates for different platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube thumbnails, and a bunch of others. After clicking on the YouTube thumbnail templates, this is what comes up. These thumbnails probably look familiar to you since a lot of videos on YouTube use a similar style, mostly because so many of us use the same tools. You can see the basic pattern of text in one area and a picture in another, often separated by a line or some kind of divider to make it stand out. I like the cleaning my room vlog thumbnail you see here, but Snappa actually has hundreds of other templates you can choose from, or you can design your own from scratch. What I did was show my wife and kids some of the different templates Snappa offered, and I went with their favorite, which was this camera-themed one. I've used that same template for almost every video I've made since then. I think I just changed the background on the left to gray, switched up the font, and I was good to go. And as a side note, to this day I still make 3 to 5 thumbnail options for each video and let my channel members and Patreon aristocrats and kings vote for their favorite. Whatever wins is the one I use for the video. For example, here's a recent poll I ran on my Discord server for my upper tier Patreons, where they voted not only on the thumbnail I'd use, but also on the video title. One of the title options was my new sin stock dividend income record, and the other was, is dark investing for you, my sin stock dividend record. I also had 3 different thumbnail pictures that people could vote on. Anyway, I decided to upgrade my super cheap mic to something a little better, but still affordable, and I went with a Blue Yeti, which a lot of new YouTubers use. Over the years, my audio has changed quite a bit as I've tried different mics, upgraded my computer, and moved into a new house, since all of that affects acoustics. I also started using a tool that cleans up my audio recordings by removing mouth noises, clicks, and static from the line. It works pretty well, though it can give my voice a bit of a metallic sound. I originally tried using a tool called OBS to record my audio and screen, but that didn't work out too well, so I switched to another program called Screencast. After that, I found a free video editing tool called VSDC, and I eventually upgraded it to the paid version, which was still affordable and gave me more features and power. Anyway, another big influence for me was a creator named PPC Ian. His first video was posted all the way back in 2010, but his first dividend videos came out in 2016, just like Dr. Dividend. One reason I resonated with Ian was because I could tell he was a smart, friendly, positive person. I really value nice people, and Ian's someone I had a chance to chat with on Twitter and YouTube, and he's always been a super kind person. He's been investing for a long time, and he's clearly passionate about dividend investing, and we actually own a lot of the same tickers. I just checked a recent upload of his where he showed his top 5 tickers, all of which I also own. He has 40 tickers in his portfolio, and I have 29. His number 1 stock in terms of portfolio value is J&J, which is my number 6 stock. His number 2 is Altria, which is my number 1, and both of us have commented that Altria moved up so much in our portfolios because it's done so well lately. His number 3 is Starbucks, which is actually my smallest position and is 29th in my portfolio. His number 4 is BTI, which is my number 11. And his 5th biggest position is McDonald's, which is my 14th largest. He said that his top 5 tickers are about 37% of his portfolio by value, and my top 5 are 31%. And he said his top 5 tickers generate about 42% of his portfolio's income, and my top 5 generate 29% of my income. His portfolio yield is around 3.6%, compared to mine at about 4.3%. And it makes sense for mine to be a bit higher since I'm retired, while he's mentioned that he has about 6 more years to go before reaching FIRE. His portfolio's 5-year dividend CAGR is at 4.7%, and mine is at 5.3%. He said that his top 10 stocks are 61% of his portfolio's value, and my top 10 are 54%. His top 10 stocks are 63% of his dividend income, and my top 10 are 65%. His goal is to double his current dividend income over the next 6 years, which would allow him to achieve a fat FIRE. That means his income needs to grow at a 12% CAGR for 6 years, so between dividend hikes and additional investments, he hopes to get there. He and I have similar philosophies in that we tend not to sell a stock unless they cut the dividend, broadly speaking. And unlike Dr. Dividend, PPC shows his face, which the experts say helps your channel grow faster and adds more authenticity. PPC also does something similar to Dr. Dividend in that his thumbnails keep evolving, but he includes his face as part of his overall brand. Now, one of the things YouTube experts recommend to new creators is to watch videos in your niche and leave relevant comments on them. Doing that helps you see what the bigger creators are doing, and it also starts to build recognition for your own channel name, both with them and with other commenters. Sometimes that alone can help you pick up a few new subscribers. Like someone might see your comment and click on your name to check if you have a channel. Of course, the experts recommend not being lame and saying something like, "Hey, I just did a similar video to yours." Instead, actually watch the video and leave a comment that is relevant, useful, interesting, or even funny, i.e. add something that adds to the conversation. It helps them and it can help you too. And I did a ton of that when I first started my channel. Back then, there were a ton of dividend investing channels on YouTube, but most of them are now gone or no longer posting, or have switched to a different topic. Like one of the people I came to know when I first started getting into YouTube was a guy named JMac Investing. He had a relatively smaller channel and was doing dividend investing content for a while, but then he shifted heavily into SPACs. Eventually, he closed down his investing channel altogether and started dabbling in sports cards. JMac had a really jovial personality and was friends with lots of small creators. He always seemed welcoming to everyone around him, and that definitely influenced my decision to start a channel. I was also influenced by some bigger channels back then, including a few that grew way faster than I did. For example, I believe Joseph Carlson launched his channel about 6 months before mine, and it's been incredible to see how quickly his community has grown. I remember watching and commenting on some of his early dividend investing videos. Funny enough, I later realized I'd started using a thumbnail style similar to his, so maybe I was influenced by him without even realizing it. We actually ended up having a friendly chat about his thumbnail design in a private creator channel on my Discord server. A fellow YouTuber commented that his specific style had actually been used by other creators for years, which makes sense given the default thumbnail templates that they have in Snappa and Canva and wherever. Joseph was a key early influencer for the M1 brokerage, and it was because of his videos that I decided to give M1 a try. I thought M1 was a nice platform with a cool interface, though I preferred keeping my portfolio at E-Trade, at least until I moved it to Fidelity. I really appreciated Joseph's talent for sharing his perspective on current events. One thing that stood out to me was that his portfolio had around 20% in bonds, which reflects that classic idea of holding a bond percentage equal to your age, and I think he was in his late 20s at that time. That being said, most modern financial advisors now view that old rule as a bit too conservative, and instead recommend that younger investors focus more on growth stocks. I haven't followed Joseph in years, and I'm not sure what his current portfolio or investing strategy looks like these days. I'm sure that all his hard work, his subscribers, and his strategies are helping fuel the growth of his investments. And his trajectory leads to an important lesson about mindset. The truth is, there will always be people that grow faster than you, whether it's with a portfolio, a YouTube channel, in the gym, or anywhere else. And there will also be people that probably grow slower than you. The key is to use everything as motivation on your own path, rather than letting it bother you. Don't stress if someone seems to be doing better than you in some part of their life, because you never know what challenges they might be dealing with, and honestly, how they do doesn't affect you. Be happy for them and keep focusing on improving yourself. I've seen plenty of channels grow faster than mine, and that's just the nature of things. But I've also seen that if you keep pushing forward and keep getting up each time you fall, you'll grow as well. I've also noticed that most new channels stop posting at or before the 2-year mark on YouTube, and sometimes even big channels end up quitting. For example, Bruce Wang, who has over 150,000 subscribers, stopped posting videos about 3 years ago. Bruce was a relatively new stock investor, but he has really solid production quality and a lot of charisma in his videos. He built up a dividend portfolio to around $350,000 before eventually shifting his focus from stocks to real estate investing. Another dividend investor who had a decent-sized YouTube channel before stepping away was Kenny Robinson. He ended up getting into mobile home park investments, at least as far as I remember. And another dividend YouTuber who influenced me to start was Independent Investor, who had over 20,000 subscribers when I started, which seemed massive at the time. He was friends with JMac and a lot of smaller creators, and he often hosted live streams where you could chat with him. He'd give shoutouts to newer creators like me during his streams, which I really appreciated because it helped expose my content to his audience. And going on live streams with people in your niche and chatting with other folks is another way YouTube experts recommend growing your channel. A few years ago, Independent Investor seemed to shift his strategy away from dividends and more towards small cap stocks. I'm not sure if he still keeps a dividend portfolio, but he's a really cool guy, so definitely check out his channel and see if his style resonates with you. Another guy I used to watch before I started my channel was a dividend investor named Jake Jones. I think he had around 10,000 subscribers, but he ended up closing his channel, so I'm not sure what happened to him. Leave me a comment if you know. I think he was living in Thailand or somewhere around there, and that actually influenced me to start thinking about moving abroad and living in a less expensive country. These days I find myself thinking more and more about moving somewhere else, although my wife is more interested in places like southern France than Asia, so I'm not sure that whole less expensive idea will work out for us. Moving on, another person that inspired me to start my own was Ollie's World of Stocks. He seems like a great guy with a lot of charisma, and I remember he was a big fan of Disney, which was also one of the stocks I owned years ago. Disney was a great lesson and reminder for me as an investor. I remember thinking that the company was basically untouchable because they were so diversified with movies, media streaming, their incredible theme parks, merchandise, and even their cruises. But then the Black Swan pandemic hit, and Disney was hit hard, followed by some management missteps. I mean, take a look at this 10-year total return chart for Disney, and it's almost unbelievable to me. They've only returned about 6.5%, while the S&P 500 has returned roughly 278%. That's one more reason why broad market ETFs are often a much safer long-term choice than individual stocks. Anyway, Ollie invests in all kinds of companies these days, which is a smart approach. These days I choose to focus only on dividend stocks since I'm retired and really value the time that comes with truly passive income. I also like knowing that my income can keep coming in for my family, even if something happens to my health. I was influenced by Ollie's audio delivery and the way he makes his videos sound so compelling. I've still got a lot of work to reach that level of skill. But one thing some of you don't know is that I've had multiple strokes, and that can make doing even recordings challenging sometimes. It's not uncommon I'll have to record a sentence 5 or 6 times just to get it out, and that's just the nature of life. Moving on, a smaller channel that influenced me to start was Dividend, which doesn't post new content anymore. They made videos covering different dividend-related topics, and I appreciated what they were doing. Their work gave me some ideas for my own videos and helped reinforce that feeling that I should start my own channel. The truth is, I'm sure I was influenced a little by at least everyone I watched. People like Graham Stephan, Minority Mindset, Ryan Scribner, Joseph Hogue, and the list goes on and on. In fact, take a look at all these other channels that I'm listing in alphabetical order that I sometimes watch or maybe talk to or something, and I'm sure each of them influenced me to some degree. Sorry if I missed anyone that I used to chat with, as it's been many years and I'm sure I've forgotten a few names. And speaking of names, when I started my channel, one of the first things I had to figure out was what to call it. I decided to use the same name for both me and the channel so it would be easier for people to remember. And that leads me to ask you this question. Please leave me a comment telling me if you realize that my name is actually GenExDividendInvestor instead of just GenExDividendInvestor. Also tell me if you know the 3 reasons why GenExDividendInvestor is my name. Okay, so the first reason is the most obvious, which is that I was born between the mid-1960s and the early 1980s, so I'm part of Generation X. The second reason I went with my name is more nuanced, and it's because I'm an ex-dividend investor, which was a fun way I could overload the GenExDividend name. I.e., the ex-dividend date is the cutoff date, meaning you need to own the stock before this date to be eligible for the next dividend. That's also the date when a stock's price is usually expected to drop by about the amount of the dividend. But as I've shown you before, the data on the ex-dividend date anomaly shows that, on average, the price actually only drops by around 80% of the dividend amount on that day. And then the last fun reason is because you can make a simple abbreviation of my name as GEDI that you can pronounce like Jedi, aka a Jedi Dividend Investor, which sounds kinda braggy, but I only mean it in a comedic way. And those are the reasons why my name and channel are GenExDividendInvestor. After I came up with my name, I needed a logo to brand each video I released. I've always been a gamer and love fantasy stuff, so I decided my brand would be a black and gold coat of arms with 2 lion-like figures facing each other, a big X in the middle, and my name underneath. I found a service called Fiverr where you can hire artists from all around the world to create things for you, and I worked with someone who made my logo for about $30. So at that point I had my name and my logo, I was inspired to start, had a bunch of video ideas for what I wanted to make, and in 2019 I launched my channel. After I started, I kept watching other dividend investors for a while and got to know a bunch of creators who started around the same time I did. And again, I'm sure they all influenced me in different ways, but over time I slowly stopped watching other channels, partly to minimize their influence on what I did, and partly because I wanted to focus more on my own stuff. Anyway, I think by now you should have a good sense of how my journey began. So now let's switch gears, and I want to show you some data that I think will really surprise you. And before I show you, pause this video for a second and leave me a comment with what your guess is on which sector has had the highest returns this year. And I think you'll be surprised when you see the answer. So here's the actual year-to-date sector performance of US stocks. The SP 500 is up about 13% year-to-date, which is awesome. Communication services is up around 18%, which honestly surprised me. Financials are up only 10%, which is also a bit surprising to see lagging. And Mighty Technology is up a huge 21.07%, which I'm guessing is what most people would assume was number 1. But no, Infotech is actually the second best performing sector this year. The number 1 best performing sector year to date in the US is good old boring utilities, up 21.15% this year and beating out every other sector. Here are a couple of utility stocks I own. This is Seeking Alpha's total return chart showing Southern Company with a 24.5% return, and then the SP 500 at 14.5%, and Duke Energy at 21.78%. Keep in mind that those sector performance numbers are usually based on price returns, while the Seeking Alpha chart shows total returns. And why are utilities doing so well? A big reason is because all those AI data centers running large language models need massive amounts of power, and utilities are the ones supplying it. Pretty amazing. Now to close things out on a lighter note, I thought I'd show you a few pictures and videos from the vacation we just got back from. My channel members already know that I went to Las Vegas with my family to watch this year's Mr. Olympia competition, since I shared some photos with them. It's held in Las Vegas, and this first photo was taken from the Bellagio, looking toward the Paris on the Strip while the fountain show was going on. I'm actually a part owner in the Bellagio since Realty Income owns a portion of it, and it's one of my larger holdings at about 6.39% of my portfolio. Here's a short clip I took of those amazing Bellagio fountains in action. We stayed at the Paris Hotel for a bit, then moved over to the Hilton at Resorts World, since that's where Olympia was being held. Before the bodybuilding competition, we went to see a Wizard of Oz show at the Las Vegas Sphere. The Sphere is the world's largest spherical building, completely covered inside and out with video screens that deliver 16K resolution. It's basically like a two-sided ultra-high-def TV, where both the outside and the inside display visuals. They host concerts and immersive cinematic shows there, with incredible spatial audio, haptic seats that move with the action, and environmental effects like wind and scent. So during the beginning of The Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy gets caught in the tornado, your seat actually starts moving while these massive fans blow air through the inside of the sphere where you're sitting. They even pipe in fake leaves in front of the fans, so it literally feels like you're right inside the tornado spinning all around you in nearly 360 degrees. Here's a quick video I took during that tornado scene. Once that show was over, it was time for the Olympia weekend. They had a massive expo packed with vendors showing new gear, protein powders, and even a few celebrities. Like here's the Mountain from Game of Thrones. The actual competition has a bunch of different categories, and here's a look at some of the women's fitness competitors. But the main event is the men's open division, and here are the top 4 finishers. The guy on the left is Samson Dauda, who finished 4th overall this year, though he won the title in 2024. Next to him is Derek Lunsford, who won this year's Mr. Olympia. It's actually his second win since he also took first place in 2023. Standing next to him is Hadi Choopan, who finished 2nd this year, won the fan favorite, and was the overall champion back in 2022. And finally on the far right is Andrew Jack, who placed 3rd this year. It's amazing what dedication and consistency can accomplish, and that's a good note to end on. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and click that bell notification. And sorry if that annoys you. Now I'd like to shout out my newest Patreon aristocrat, Timothy Stahl, who upgraded from a champion to an aristocrat for an entire year. Moving on, now I'd like to show my gratitude to subscribers who've left me kind comments, so I'm going to shout out 10 who've done just that. So thank yous go out to Strategic Investor AI, Vladislav Galchenko, Michael Joseph Jr., Julio E. Rodriguez, Carlton Weichel, Joseph Sweatshirt, Traderista, David L., Todd Brumble, and multiple from Jason Mellon Con JM. Thanks folks, I really appreciate it. Now I'd like to recommend you check out my Seeking Alpha affiliate link, which often has a discount when new users sign up. I'd also like to pitch my Fast Graphs affiliate link along with my coupon code in the description of this video, as using both will allow new users to get 25% off their first payment even if they sign up for a full year. Also check out my Patreon page and or consider joining my channel membership, as both have some cool perks you might like. Finally, I'll close this off by recommending that everyone join my free Dividend Discord chat server, which has over 11,000 Dividend investors on it from 86 countries around the world. Thanks for watching, stay positive, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor, and my videos are for entertainment and inspirational purposes only. Investing of any kind involves risk. I'm only sharing my opinions with no guarantee of gains or losses on investments.